Are your leadership goals too complicated? Coach, I love how Dan shared with us today this concept of one word and how important that is when we're writing pages and pages of goals, but we're not really focusing on that one word that gives us direction and space.
As well, when he talked about, are you surrounding yourself with the right people? And he talked about having both watchmen and workmen, and we're going to delve into more of what that means.
Let's get right into it.
This is the Limitless Leadership Lounge, where Coach and John learn along with you from some of the world's most decorated leaders. Recently promoted, let's sharpen the saw together.
We're really excited to have our guest today on the Limitless Leadership Lounge, and that's Dan Britton. Dan's a speaker, writer, coach, and trainer whose purpose is to help people discover and pursue their passion. After 34 years at FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, he now founded his own company called Sports Life Leadership. Dan has also played professional lacrosse for the Baltimore Thunder and has been nominated by his teammates for both service and unsung hero awards. He has co-authored 9 books, including the book One Word, which we're going to delve into a little bit, and was co-authored with John Gordon. And a little crazy fact, the other co-author was Jimmy Page. And I do got to tell our audience, because I'm an old guy, that I coached Jimmy Page in high school basketball over 4 decades ago. So we reconnected through Dan. So Dan, it's great to have you. Welcome to the Limitless Leadership Lounge.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, John. Glad to be here with you today.
So Dan, I'm going to delve right into, because in leadership, we hear about faith. I know you're big into faith. I'm curious how your faith has helped you as a leader and helping young leaders, should they have faith as part of their leadership?
Yeah, great question. I think the idea that faith being infused into leadership is very important. I believe it's the foundation, actually, to leadership. It's not an ingredient. It's not an add-on. It's the foundation, I believe, for real leadership, true leadership, authentic leadership. So if you say faith, how does faith and leadership combine? You come out with this concept of spiritual leadership, right? Like the idea of, hey, someone's leading in a spiritual way, which also is another component. For me, as a man of faith, I go back to someone that gave us a great example over 2,000 years ago, Jesus. You can study all the great leaders of the day, and Jesus, again, as a Christian, gave us the example. And during that time, Jim, he flipped the script. He did the unthinkable. He blessed the poor. He healed the sick. He ended up giving value to women. All the things that strong, powerful leaders were dominating down and taking power, not becoming a servant. And so everything he did flipped the leadership equation around 2,000 years ago and really birthed this whole concept of what it means to be a servant leader. And if you want to be great, you have to be last. It's a paradox. It's these paradoxes that just don't seem to fit when someone's trying to lead and be powerful and have control. And Jesus comes in and he goes, nope, that's not the way. And so I believe, Jim, for me, studying the life of Jesus, reading God's word, reading books on faith and leadership, it's my passion. That's for 35 years, I've been leading in a faith-based community through sports. And that's what my wheelhouse is.
Yeah. Craig Groeschel says this very powerfully. He says that Jesus was the ultimate servant leader. And you mentioned a couple of those things that he did, Dan. What are some of the other characteristics that you take away from Jesus and other leaders that you admire as well when it comes to servant leadership?
Yeah, I think when I look at books that have been written by, one of my favorites is by Oswald Sanders, Spiritual Leadership. It's a top 3 book, Oswald Sanders. You're going to be underlining every sentence. I just finally was like, okay, I got to stop highlighting the entire book. It was the only book that I ever felt like, oh, wow, there wasn't a single line that I didn't highlight. What's the point of highlighting?
Kind of defeats purpose.
Yeah. And he just grounds the concept of spiritual leadership. And Talks about simple things like the man of God doesn't pursue the position, pursues the man of God. Those types of things that your job as a spiritual leader is get close to the foot of the cross, not try to build your empire. And he just walks you through an amazing book on that. I look at Roy Hession, who wrote a book called The Calvary Road. And Calvary Road has sold millions of copies in over 60 languages. When I was with Fellowship Christian Athletes, we made every new staff person read that before they came on staff. And he talks about that as a leader, you don't have to just be a servant, you're a servant of servants. What a great concept. But let's just take it to the next level. It's not just a servant, but you're a servant of servants. So those are some things, John, that I resonate on, that I believe that as I read and I study and as I look into scripture and see that John, the great example Jesus gave, the last time gathered with his disciples in John 13, we ever use this. And here it was, he's with his followers. And somehow, I know the customs back then. I've been over in Israel, and they there should have been someone at the door washing people's feet, and the servant wasn't there. And you had all the other disciples, 12 disciples, missed an opportunity. They could have done what Jesus did. People don't realize it was a busted play. It was almost like Jesus was setting them up. Who would be the one that instead of trying to clamor, get next to Jesus at the Last Supper, would have sat at the door and made sure that everyone's feet were cleaned? No one did it because the servant wasn't there. And Jesus went, I'm going to be the servant. And he washed the disciples' feet. And he said, hey, I've given you an example, and I go and do to others. What a great example. But just think, Peter could have done that. Hey, guess what? No, the servant's not there. I'm gonna do that role. But Jesus became the ultimate example of what it meant to actually lead, which was, and I say, if leaders had the posture as if they walked into a coach, Jim, every practice, like you're serving your players, like you were washing their feet. If every business leader walked into the boardroom and had the posture mentality as if he or she got down on the hands and knees and took off the shoes, and the entire leadership world would be transformed. And that's just one simple example out of John 13. And there's literally hundreds that Jesus gave as he led the disciples and made an impact.
Very powerful. Dan, I'm going to change the course a little bit because you're a professional lacrosse player. I'm curious, was there one coach? Can you tell us a story of something you learned from one of your coaches, whether it was lacrosse or another sport you played, that impacted you to help you become a better leader?
Excellent. I went back, Jim, and I played football, basketball, and lacrosse from age 8 all the way until 26 or whatever as a professional. Had close to 50 different coaches during that span. I think it was like 52 coaches I counted up. And believe it or not, we talk about transformational coach or transactional coach. The idea of transaction is, hey, you give me wins and I want something out of my players, and the player wants something out of the coach. And there's like almost a transaction going. Transformational is about, hey, the coach wants to change the player and get them from point A to point B. You're a transformational coach, Jim. Like the idea of believing in the best in players and not what you get out of them, but what's for them. And I think my high school football coach, Sleepy Thompson, isn't that a great name? You got to
That's
have
awesome.
that's a great football name. Sleepy Thompson.
Was that a
man.
nickname?
I got curious,
Dan, or-
was Sleepy, was he a high energy guy or not?
No, he wasn't. He was really like, it's interesting. I love high energy rah coaches. Like in the locker room, foaming at the mouth,
Right.
that fires me up. I respond to that. But Sleepy wasn't that way. He was like, he was almost this. He coached at St. Stephen's High School in Alexandria, Virginia. It was crazy. He coached there for like 55 years and
Gosh.
was there. He actually coached 6-man football back in the day. Found out, I did a little research. My dad played boys Latin football in the 50s, and supposedly my dad played against Sleepy when he coached. Like that's how old he was. And so I'm playing for Sleepy, and my sophomore year we're undefeated. We had an undefeated team, and the next year we lost one game in their senior year. He retired from my junior year to my senior year. Oh my gosh.
goodness.
After all those years, 55 years, and he retired on me. But what I remember about him, Jim, is he was a quiet man, Sleepy. He was very mellow, But man, it was almost like E.F. Hutton. When he spoke, everyone listened, everyone leaned in. And it was almost like a John Wooden. I don't think John
Yeah.
Wooden was a raw. I mean, I think he could get
Right.
fired up, but he was like sleepy. But he always said one phrase, accentuate the positive. His life motto was accentuate the positive. One, in high school, I had to go look up what accentuate was. I wasn't that smart. So, hey, we're gonna emphasize, we're gonna bring the positive 24/7. And that's what Sleepy was. Like he always saw the best in something, always believed in people. And honestly, Jim, that changed the way I viewed leadership. That John Gordon is the positive leader, and his whole entire leadership framework is built on that. But I learned it as a high school student playing for Sleepy Thompson when many times he could have grabbed my face mask and let me have it. But man, he would give you a pat on the back, he would put an arm around you, and he lived out this phrase that he said all the time: boys, we're going to accentuate the positive. And it infused life into you. It just
Yeah.
literally would lift the spirits. You could just tell all the guys on the team responded so well to Sleepy versus a coach that's ripping your head off. And he showed us and was a living example of accentuating the positive.
Yeah. And where is that balance though, Dan? Because there you have to strike a balance, right? Because you can't be overly passive as a leader. We go back to the Jesus example, who Jesus also got fired up about certain things and was not a leader who totally embodied the, I'm just going to stay calm in every situation. But then again, you also don't want to be a hot-headed leader either. So how does a young leader who's just getting started in leadership work on finding that balance and that sweet spot for them?
I think it might have been John Wooden who said there's a difference between being critical and correcting.
Mm.
So it's a fine nuance that you can correct someone without being critical, but it's hard to be critical and then also correct. It's like you kind of lost them if you're being critical and then trying on the backside to correct them. But man, if you want to just come in and not have that critical spirit, and I think that's the part that's really hard. That it's there's accountability does not mean negative. Accountability does not mean critical. And there is a sting to accountability. I always say, like, accountability that counts has a sting to it. Like it's gotta have some like little hooks into it, right? It's gotta have a little bit of a teeth into it. Yeah, accountability is just not, hey, you blew it again. Hope you don't blow it again. No, it's like there's a little bit of a sting. There's a little bit of a cost that's involved. So I believe, John, that there's a difference between correction and critical. And as leaders, we need to be careful to walk that line to not have a critical spirit, and that critical spirit becomes negative. And then I just think that becomes a very vicious cycle as we lead or as we coach. And correction is, hey, we can get tough on them. Okay, I know the coaches that grab my jersey and look me in the eyes, but they weren't critical. Man, it was accountability. It was believing in me. It was firing me up, and it was correcting me that I did something wrong. But I feel like they were shaming me
Hmm.
or they're embarrassing me. And so I think a great leader knows how to walk that line of going whether it's critical or correcting.
Yeah, I think
Great
it's
point.
because a statement I heard many years ago, it really helped me better with the word you were talking about, correct, is I heard connect before you correct. And
Wow.
that really made me focus on being a better leader, on building relationships, because as a coach, I had to correct. Otherwise, we weren't going to go in the right direction. But yeah, I think you really made a nice thing is correct the behavior and not necessarily criticize the person.
Mhm.
Well said. I'm going to go in another direction because as leaders, sometimes we make a big change. And for you, you were with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, for over 3 decades. And then you started your own business. Help us and help the people listening of that idea of starting your own business and give us 2 or 3 things that you needed to do, breaking away from an organization, blood, sweat, and tears for many decades. Tell us how that transition.
Hard. Any other questions? Really hard. I think there's a couple of books in there that I haven't written yet. Yeah, I think there's so much to it because I never thought I'd ever serve a day outside of working with FCA. So one is you don't ever entertain, what if I went and did this? Like I was so locked in. And then when a change like that happens and you realize, okay, God's in it and God's closing a door, and it's very apparent that this is what has to happen. And the transitions being made, whatever the circumstances to lead you to get to that line to cross, to make a change. I think, Jim, there's a lot of identity. That was a really hard thing because, like, I was the FCA guy.
Yeah.
People
Mm.
joke, "Hey, you cut Danny bleeds FCA," and I even had the FCA underwear on. I had everything FCA. And I think suddenly you realize that you're not the FCA guy anymore. And yeah, you still have all those relationships and you have still all those contacts, but it changes. Like it completely changes. And you probably went through that, Jim, going from coaching all those years to suddenly you're still Coach Jim, but
Yeah.
you don't have a whistle around your neck.
Right.
And that's a massive identity shift.
Yeah.
And honestly, I never had counseling in my life. I got counseling. I had a
Yeah.
leadership coach. I was doubling up. Like I was digging in because I had to really check my heart and my mind and make sure that as I was transitioning that I was healthy and that I was processing things right and not getting stuck. And I had a lot, and I had a good small group. I had probably about two or three other guys outside of my leadership coach, my spiritual counselor that really helped me navigate that change. So I would say one of the points, Jim, is you got to surround yourself with a team, a small group. If you make a big change like that, you got to get a group of people. I maybe call it a transition team. I didn't even know it was, but
Mm.
a transition team of five people that you can let into your life and make sure that they're available to you and that it's iron sharpens iron, as the Bible
Yeah.
says. Like it's one man sharpens another. And I would say that group of 5 6 guys were a lifeline. That
Yeah.
was very key.
I want to delve in just a little deeper because I've heard that concept. I've heard like personal board of directors, and I think they're great ideas. Like John and I are accountability people for each other, and that's been very helpful in my life. But I'm curious because for a young leader, I think you do need to surround yourself with people to help you. Is give some advice on picking the right people because that's not easy either.
Jimmy and I are very Jimmy Page, who you've had and you coached him in high school.
Yeah.
He's my 35-year friend. We just actually finished a book number 10 and
Wow.
coming out in November called 100 Days of Strength for Leaders. Very excited about that. But our very first book we wrote 15 years ago was a book called Wisdom Walks. And in the Wisdom Walks, we talk about key relationships and the idea that as a leader, you got to surround yourself with the right people. And
Mhm.
so I wish when I was younger, when I was right out of college, I had this model, but it's really, we talk about having one or two warriors that are next to you. So building out your dream team, we call it the dream team, is have one or two warriors that are accountability partners. So kind of like John's one of your accountability partners. We say, hey, one guy's good, but two's better. Like the idea of having two people else in your life is great. And they're kind of like peers. They're helping you get better. And it's kind of like you're sharpening each other and you're challenging each other, sharpening and challenging to move forward as leaders and as men and women of God, whatever that relationship is. Then you have the warriors. Then you have a watchman, and the watchman is one that sits on the wall and can see things beyond what you can see because they're in a different season. They're wiser. They're the sage, and that watchman is someone that's a mentor that's investing in you and pouring into your life. And we all need that. I had two of those. I had Todd as my spiritual mentor while I was transitioning, and I have a guy named Dan Webster that is my kind of my life watchman, and another guy, Judd Martin, that's a watchman. So I got a couple guys that are sitting on the wall, seeing out beyond and helping Dan navigate what I can't see myself because they have that wisdom. So having a watchman or two is so important. And then below you is you have a workman. That's a someone you're discipling, someone you're mentoring, someone that you're pouring into, that you become their watchman. And now you have a workman in your life that is younger than you, and you're having a chance to help them grow and develop as a leader. And so when you have a couple warriors that are kind of like peers and you're battling, you're locking arms with each other, and You're challenging and sharpening each other. Then you have watchmen that is helping you, training you and growing you and directing you and guiding you. Man, that investment that I remember one time I was going through with my daughter for the first, I had three kids, and suddenly when a guy gave my daughter a ring, I went into meltdown. I was like, what's going on? Someone wants to marry my daughter? No way. And I called my watchman, Judd, and he goes, I'll tell you what I did wrong and don't do what I did. And he shared out his weakness, what he did wrong, and said, don't fall in the same mistake I did. And you know what? Because of what Judd told me, I believe it allowed me to have an amazing relationship with my son-in-law that probably would have not happened if my watchman didn't invest in me and I had that relationship. And then again, I have a couple guys. I have a guy named Freddie. I have a guy named Chris that I invest in. I'm intentional and pouring into that. Now I become their watchman to them.
Yeah.
That's the key. That as leaders, we need to have a team like that we're forming, in a dream team. That, and Jimmy Page, he's a 35-year warrior that I've been locking arms for 35. He knows my thoughts better than I know my thoughts. We've done life together. We've experienced everything together.
How about John Gordon too? What's your relationship like with John?
Yes, we are really close. So we've written like 4 books together, and it's crazy, John, you say that, because I got to know John Gordon through a broken play. Like, it was funny. I was at FCA. He'd just written Training Camp. I didn't know who John Gordon was. And supposedly his publisher sent like 400 copies of Training Camp to our office to give them away. To, hey, just so I go, what's this guy John sending us all these books? I don't even know who he is. What are we supposed to? Everybody wants us to give their books away. So we just sat on them. Called me up and he was upset. He was really upset. He's like, I just gave you thousands of dollars of books my publisher was able to underwrite, and they're supposed to go at the football coaches convention. I didn't know this, but somehow we were supposed to give them out at the football coaches convention, and someone told them we would, and they just sat in the warehouse. And so he called me, let me have it. I'm just kind of, who is this dude? Who do you think he is? And so at the end, I found out he played lacrosse at Cornell. I played lacrosse at Delaware. Then our conversation was level 10. Then it went to like we ratcheted down a little bit. Now we're talking lacrosse. We can know common people. And I said, hey, John, look, I'm really sorry. I'll read it. And we have our basketball Final Four coming up, the big basketball convention. We do a big outreach. I'll be out there. We do a breakfast. We'll hand it out. I'll promote it. I read the book, and honestly, it's one of my favorite John Gordon books, and just love Training Camp. You know, love the transformation at the end of the book, the conversion of the player, just phenomenal. So I called him back. I'm like, dude, this book is great. And he goes, I told you, like, let's hand it out. Even though it was a football, it should have been football. We can hand out basketball. Well, it was like hotcakes at the basketball convention. Like, people loved it. Like, Division I coaches were like, man, following up with them. And John would say that was one of the early on little bumps that got him into the sports world, that opened the doors that now he does a lot of college stuff, was all because of the broken play that I messed up on. And then we became buddies. Then he was like, man, like, you followed through. Thank you. It was a rough start. Our conversation at the beginning was rough, but we became buddies, and found out his daughter played lacrosse. And I have 2 daughters that play lacrosse and a son. And so we invited him to FCA lacrosse camp, and his daughter, and I was the speaker. It's funny. John's in the audience. I'm the speaker at the camp to the kids. And, you know, that's what I was speaking at. And I remember Jade, his daughter, goes, Dad, why don't you speak like Dan does? I'm like, wow. I want to speak like John does. What are you talking about? It was just funny. And sure enough, like, that was a camp at FCA camp that Jade gave her life to God and surrendered her life and became a key part for their family. And then Catherine came to an FCA event where Billy Graham's daughter, Ann Graham Lotz, was speaking. And that was a huge change for Catherine. So I feel like God put John and I together through this broken play. And then later on, we ended up writing one word together. We're Life Word. We wrote One Word for Kids, the journal. So we've written 4 books together. We've had these intersects with his family, having these spiritual markers in their life. So yeah, he is a warrior in my life. And he serves on our board with Sports Life. He's actually on our board of directors, and being able to invest and serve and give us wisdom.
I got to dig in since you brought it up. And I had heard the concept, but I had gotten away from it. And then I read your book, One Word, that you sent to me. And then, of course, I ended up connecting with Jimmy Page. So you never know in life how things work out. I hadn't talked to Jimmy in over 40 years. But I did create a word. My word for this year is breakthrough. And I'm curious, tell us a little bit about that idea and helping leaders, because I do love the concept.
Yeah, it is such a simple, sticky, memorable, transferable. There's a lot of one words I could describe the one word thing with, but it is, I never realized that back in 1999, when a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, Steve Fitzhugh, played for the NFL, and we were driving at the end of the year, and it's supposed to be the Y2K year 2000.
Mm.
John, you're probably so young you don't even remember that. The
I
world,
was one. I was a year old. I just had turned one at that time.
I was one. Isn't that great, Jim? So the world was gonna melt. Y2K,
Right, right.
1999. The computers weren't gonna flip, and no one knew.
Yeah,
Like literally,
yeah.
people were like thinking like bombs would go off and all kinds of crazy. Like people were like wigging out. So heading into the year 2000, it was in November, and I'm driving with my friend Steve to go speak at a big youth rally down in Ocean City, Maryland. A couple thousand kids, and he's an amazing communicator. Like he speaks all over the world, and one of the best communicators I've ever heard. And he said, "Hey, what's your word as you head into the year of 2000?" And I had a 7-page Word document, Jim, that I had all my roles, goals, targets, prayers. I was over the top. Like I was just obsessive with it. So we had 3 hours in the car. We're drinking our Dunkin' Donut coffee. And I said, dude, let me tell you what I'm going to do in year 2000 if we live. And I went through all my things. Hey, it says, and this is a father and as a husband and hey, as a ministry leader, as a friend. And after about 20 minutes, he looked over and he's a big football guy. And he goes, Dan, you're pretty stupid. I asked for one word. And it was interesting. I was like stuck that I couldn't simplify.
Mm.
Like I had gravitated to complexity. And one of my life principles is we drift toward complexity, we drive towards simplicity. And I think over time we just I drifted to 7 pages of complexity of just all these things, all good. But at the end of the year, I'd accomplish like 10% of it. And then I'd like a dog returning to the vomit, like Proverbs said, I'd go right back to it. I'll just rework a little bit and hopefully next year and pull up my bootstraps and try harder and commit harder and fail even harder. And he goes, and I go, Steve, I can't pull 7 pages into one word. And so I came up with a phrase. I came up with a cool phrase. And he goes, you are an idiot. I asked for one word. And I was failing at this test. And so what you do is when you're stuck, what do? You turn it back on them. So I go, okay, big boy, what's your one word? And I'll never forget, Jim. I'll never forget. He said the word harvest.
Okay.
Now, Steve I picked him up in inner city DC, which is filled with concrete. There's no fields, there's no harvest going on in there. And I'm going, harvest? Like, what the heck are you talking about? And he said, Dan, he says, as a communicator, he says, I get a chance to spend every year speaking to hundreds of thousands of young people. And he said this, I get chills every time I say it. He goes, I want to plant seeds of greatness into the next generation and have a harvest of leaders rise up. Ah, what a one word. You want to talk about capturing the heart. You want to talk about a vision. You want to talk about something that gets you up early and keeps you up late. Harvest. Like his word for the year 2000 was harvest. So he said, what's your word? And I said, harvest. No, I didn't say that. I wanted to take the word. Come on. So bad wanted to steal his word. I was like, you had the best word. So I said, Steve, I said, I don't know. I said, dude, I got to unscramble my 7 pages. I got to pray about this. I'm a runner. I'm a journaler. I just need some time, but I'll let you know when I find my word. And sure enough, about 2 weeks later, I'm running on a back trail, and it was almost like the word found me. It wasn't me like picking a word or going, hey, this word would be nice. Like I'm running, and it was like almost like a lightning bolt. God revealed the word to me, not in an audible way, but God just tugged on my heart, and he said, intimacy. He says, Dan, in ministry, you're a mile wide and an inch deep. And he goes, this year, I want you to go deep. I want you to be intimate with me as a relationship with God, with the family, with your friends, with your coworkers. Look him in the eye, go deep, build significant relationships. And the word is intimacy. And man, I called Steve up, said, I got my word. It's better than harvest. It's intimacy. I can't wait. In the year 2000, yes, it was Y2K, but it was the year of intimacy. And everywhere I turned, every sermon, every book, every song, every conversation, it's like the antennas were up, the signals were up, and those things spoke to me. And that was the year of intimacy. And then, hey, the next year, God revealed a word to me. So it's been what, 27 years, 27 years, 28 years that we've been building chapter after chapter and letting each chapter stand on its own. And some years are better than others. Some years you feel more successful than others. Some years you learn more than other. But it's not about conquering your word. It's not about climbing to the top of the mountain, sticking a flag in it and saying, I defeated my word. I owned it. You know, that if you do that, it's going to own you. And the thing is, it's experiencing and journeying and learning and growing, but it provides that putting on the glasses every day, that one word, that lens that you look through that provides laser-like focus to help frame up all six dimensions of your life on the backside. So now you build it out on the backside. So how does that one word build out the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the emotional, the relational, and even financial, all six dimensions building out that word can apply.
Wow. Very powerful. And I think that we talk so often about goals. And I've been more of a believer that goals are a little bit overrated in some ways. The typical goal setting models that we have, right? Because you might have had 7 pages of great goals, but how many of those, to your point, were actually going to be accomplished? But so talk a little bit about that, how a word in someone's life, just one simple concept to stay laser focused on, will transform your leadership at both work and at home more so than a laundry list of goals.
Yeah, great point, John. Goals are great until they're not great, until the wheels fall off. And I think a lot of times goals are based out of commitment. And as a man of faith, I believe like God doesn't want us to commit to him. He wants us to surrender to him. So there's this kind of this interesting dynamic as a leader that is it better to surrender or commit? And how does that shape you as a leader? Like realizing that again, committing even harder, try, fail, try, fail, try, fail, try, quit, the doom loop. Because commitment sometimes just isn't enough. Versus surrender, God, I can't do this. I need help. Like I need you to bring other people into my life. I need you to help me. Like the idea like when we're weak, he's strong. When we're weak, others are able to pick us up. Like part of it is birthed out of not gritting your teeth and trying even harder, but it's surrender in the sense that great leaders have a posture and humility to surrender. And that's the thing that so many leaders don't understand, that the greatest leaders are Sleepy Thompson was one of the most humble coaches. He was the most winning coach in high school history, one of the longest coaches, but you never know it. He was the most humble. John Wooden, one of the most humble man of God. And as a coach, and he was rated the greatest coach of all sports was John Wooden. But this humility out of surrender, not just gritting your teeth and trying harder. And I think, John, you made a great point about goals because I would say goals are key, but what kind of goals? Are they to do goals or to be goals?
Hmm.
So to do goals, it's about what you do. Okay. To be goals is who you want to be. Okay. So instead of what you want to accomplish, who do you want to become this year. That's the one word power. Like the word isn't about accomplishments. One word is about character and who you become as a person that God wants you to become, your family wants you to become. Like it is a transformational experience of becoming a different person, not just what you accomplish. So I believe last year my word was build. Now it sounds like, hey, that's more about what you do. But I realized that God was the one that was building it. God was challenging my faith. God was stretching me in my faith through this word build, of becoming a greater man of faith to trust him to build sports life, not on my own power. So it's not about what I accomplished, but what he did through others. And so that was a to be goal was, hey, this word build was really about faith and surrender and trust. Man, it was like all these extra blessings just in this word called build, because
Mhm.
it's about a to be goal, not a to do goal. Which again, build is, oh, I want to build this, I want to build this, I want to build. What a great what word, but really it was a who word. Who do you want to become? And then how that word transforms you to become a greater impact to those around you, to bless those around you. So, for example, when I started Sports Life Leadership, I feel like God gave me 3 words: pathway for others, pathway for others. Dan, this is not about you. This is not about you leaving your mark. It's not about you accomplishing something. It's a pathway for others. So as I was building, guess what? This pathway for others became an opportunity for other people to join. So that was building, allowing a team to be formed and becoming that type of culture and that type of community that was being lived out, which was just incredible, all through one word. It's amazing.
Really
Yeah,
cool.
really cool. Dan, I got to share one thing because you brought up John Wooden, and he was one of my mentors from afar. Because obviously, I was a coach, a high school basketball coach, and he, as you said, was named the greatest coach of anything. But the interesting little sidelight, and then I have one more question, and I could talk to you all day, so we really appreciate all your insights. But and I know John will have a wrap up for us as well. But I do want to share because people don't realize in this instant coffee world right now it took John Wooden 16 years before he won his first national championship. In this day and age, you probably would not have heard of John Wooden because he probably wouldn't have stayed at UCLA. So it's just a good lesson for all of us. And thank you. But my last question for you today is let's go back and zero in because as we're a young leader, we often forget about the first person you got to lead is yourself. And you talked about
Mhm.
6 dimensions in your life. Can you share some insights of how you lead yourself and give advice to help that young leader? Because if you don't lead yourself well, I think it's very difficult to lead others.
Yeah, it is essential self leadership. Like I say, draw a circle around yourself. Don't get out of that circle until you're ready to lead. You're right with God, your heart's right, your mind's right. Don't unleash yourself in the world until you're okay in that circle. Because if you're not okay in that circle, you're going to be a danger stepping out of that circle. So the idea of self leadership is kind of like draw that circle around yourself and get right, whatever get right means for you. Like for me, it means get right with Jesus. It means, hey, I'm praying, I'm connecting, I'm confessing, I'm getting my heart strong, my relationships are good, I'm thinking the right thoughts. And now I can be able to step out of that circle. So, what are the disciplines that you do in that circle? What are the things that you have been committed to ensure that you are ready to be the best leader possible? Like I always say, like you never know what's going to happen. Like I go, hey, I would love to see God land every single time something happens, to see something miraculous happen. When we all like, hey, God just shows up and boom. Like coach, when you took a chance to put your manager in, like that was
Yeah.
miraculous. Don't you want to see every time like God to show up that way? But what we don't want to do, what we want to do is we just want God to show up regardless of anything. What I say is I'm going to prepare the runway. I'm going to prepare the runway so that God has an opportunity to land at any moment. I want to put myself in a position by in that circle, disciplines that I do. So over my 35 years of leading in sports ministry, raising millions of dollars, and one time with FCA, I was over 3,500 staff and 116 countries. And the pressure gets to you. Like you're going, holy cow, a lot of people are counting on me. I never imagined ever being in a position like that. So I, Jim, have developed 2 hours. I did it this morning before I got on with you. 2 hours of morning disciplines. So for me, this is what I do. It didn't start out as 2 hours. It's changed over the decades, but I have realized the older I've gotten, the longer it's gotten. Because you think, hey, the older you get, yeah, you can cut it down a little bit. But the older you get, the more wise you go, man, it takes a lot to get the crap out of me and get my heart right and to process through things. I can't rush through this. There's
Yeah.
not shortcuts. So I have these morning disciplines, which is I get up, get my coffee. Very first thing I do is I spend time with God. I read devotions. I have 3 or 4 devotions I read. I don't do work. I don't write. I love to do other things. I'm a big runner. I run every day. I've run every day for almost 40 years. I've run marathons, done the Boston Marathon. But so what I do is I don't put my running shoes on. I set them down next to me, right next to my desk, as a reminder that running's going to wait before I put the first things first.
Mm.
And that's time reading, studying, preparing, growing in my faith, journaling, listening to worship music. And that's the first discipline. Then the second discipline is I put my shoes on, grab my dog Huxley, and we hit the road and do a 3, 5, 10 mile run, depending on how much time we have. And then I love music, but I don't listen to music. I listen to Craig Rochelle. I listen to John Gordon. I listen to Chuck Swindoll, great passages, great sermons. And I fill up spiritually with content or listen to a leadership book on Audible. And I'm redeeming that time that while I run for 45 minutes to an hour, I'm filling myself also with key principles and then get back. And so that takes a 2 hour block that I don't care if I'm in Thailand. I just got back from India and Greece. And no matter where I am, it's every time. The only time I can control is the time in the morning. That afternoon time slips away from you. People schedule time and things happen, crisis. But I get up, and that has been a bedrock for me as a leader to be the best I can be and be available to others and be the strongest and ready to respond the way God wants me to. And there's no way I'd be on this podcast today. There's no way I'd be starting Sports Life Leadership and seeing what's happening if it wasn't for that. Get in the circle. Don't unleash yourself on the world until you're right. And what are those disciplines? I call them morning disciplines. But that's my rhythm and routine that I believe every single person has to figure out what their morning disciplines or what their disciplines are is before they unleash themselves on the rest of the world.
Yeah. Oh,
And two things, and I know John will wrap up. One would be, I'm just curious, what time do you usually try to get up in the morning?
Jim, it was interesting. I got challenged by a mentor of mine, and that put me on a 4:30 a.m. for about 15 years. And I'm
Okay.
telling you, Christmas weekend, I set 2 alarms, and I did it for about 15 years. And it was 4:30, and it was wonderful. Like I felt like I had to jump on the day.
Yeah.
And then I felt like God goes, okay, you're good. Like it's not the time's not the key. And so now it could be anywhere from 5 to 7 sometimes. But I factor in that 2 hours. So really,
Right.
I'm trying to get more sleep. Like I can operate off 4 hours, and people tell me that's not good, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm good at 4.
Uh,
So they go, Dan, you need more sleep. The older you get, the more sleep you need. So I'm trying to get more sleep. So I fluctuate that time
okay.
based off of that 2 hours, that 2 hour increment before whatever the first thing I need to be able to do or accomplish will move, and I'm not legalistic about 4:30 like I was.
it sounds
Yeah.
like
Good.
you
And I
can't be
just want
found.
to, John, one last
Yeah,
thing
go
is,
ahead,
Dan, I'm
coach.
hoping with your listening that you're going to add the Limitless Leadership Lounge to your repertoire.
Yes, it's going to be added. Definitely.
It sounds like those 2 hours are non-negotiable for you. And so what did you ever feel? Because I think leaders feel this sometimes, that guilt of I can't be found in these 2 hours, but what if somebody needs me? I think that's a real problem that a lot of leaders face just starting out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the idea like you feel like you're that valuable that people have to that there's something there on that too. Like that again, carving out that time to say self-care, self-leadership. You know what it's like, John? I have it somewhere in my office. Finally got a Southwest flight attendant to give me one. She gifted me one. I didn't steal it, gifted. So they get up and do the pre-flight and they go, hey, here's the thing. If you're sitting next to a child, what do they say? They don't say put it on the child first and take care of the little one. They say put it on you first, which is so counterintuitive. You're like, what? Like you want to help the child? Put it on your first, then help the child. And so I finally got a flight attendant to give me one because I use it and I hold it up and I go, no, I didn't steal it. And I hold up and dangle the mask. But that's what, John, that's what it is. If you can't find that time, again, 2 hours is where I am after 35 years. Okay. You might be a better leader and only need 30 minutes. God bless you. 30 minutes. I wish I had a quick fix. I wish I could cut corners. I wish I had the microwave. I had the crock pot version. Dan Britton's, it takes 2 hours to simmer to really get the juices flowing to unleash myself on the world. Again, I don't care if it's 15 minutes. I don't care if it's 30. I don't even care what you do during that time. But the idea is that it's your time that you're sharpening the saw, as Covey says, and you're preparing yourself to be unleashed on the world as a leader. You need 2 hours, and it's non-negotiable.
Those crock pot meals are the best sometimes, so I don't blame you. Tell us
They're
more
the
about
best.
Sports Life.
Sportslifeleadership.com. You can go to it. We're a year and a half old. We're a leadership development ministry in the world of sport. We're organized by sport. So we have a wrestling division, we have a CrossFit, a jiu-jitsu. We're going to add multiple sports, but we're sports specific because each culture sport looks at life differently. I'm a lacrosse player. Lacrosse players are weird. Okay. They're a different breed. Hockey players are a different breed. So again, we're going to develop resources and training and events specifically within each resource that they can be able to do ministry in that area. And so it's been really cool. It's a blessing to be able. I always said when I was with FCA that FCA combined two of my passions, faith and sport. And you put them together, you got FCA. What I never said was it combined my three passions, faith, sports, and leadership. Because I always had a leadership passion, this leadership gear that I wanted to be a part of. So this allows us to combine all three, lead with that leadership concept in the world of sport. And so after a year and a half, we're at 31 staff and we're in 5 countries. And right now we have 3 sports and we're just seeing amazing growth quickly, overnight success, you might say, in regards to the ministry.
And so Sports Life, that's the best way to learn more about you and get in touch as well?
Yep, sportslifeleadership.com. Yep.
Sportslifeleadership.com. Dan,
I'm here for you, Dan, if you need a basketball piece.
Hey, wait, we're ready to hire a champion. You're a champion, Jim.
Dan, thank you so much for coming on, sharing these valuable leadership insights with us. I took so much away from this episode. I know Coach and our audience did as well, especially when it comes to that time in the morning that you block out that's non-negotiable, especially what you're talking about with your faith and how important that is and how it actually connects to leadership too. We like to separate those two, but they are so intertwined. So Dan, thank you for your time today.